Welcome to the orientation for potential applicants to the Competition for Parent Training and Information Centers funded by the Office of Special Education Programs and the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services at the U.S. Department of Education. I am Carmen Sanchez, a project officer at OSEP and the competition manager for this competition. The assistance listing number, or ALN, is 84.328R. I would like to go over some caveats before diving into this webinar. First, the intent of this presentation is to provide guidance only, and the information contained in this webinar provides a general summary of the information contained in the notice inviting applications and the application package. Therefore, it's imperative that all prospective applicants read the entire notice, application package, and any additional relevant information. In addition, applicants are encouraged to listen to a more general webinar entitled Applying for Office of Special Education Programs Discretionary Grants for an orientation to the overall process. The webinar can be found at osepideasatwork.org, the same location that houses the link to this recording. Please be aware of application timelines. The notice was published in the Federal Register on January 12th, 2023. All applications are due on March 28 at 11:59 and 59 seconds in the PM. Note that this is Eastern Time, and determine what the time would be in your time zone accordingly. We will discuss the implications of a late submission later in the webinar. The application package available in grants.gov contains the most comprehensive information on how to apply. In it, you will find a Dear Applicant letter from Larry Wexler, Director of OSEP's Research to Practice Division. You will also find the Notice Inviting Applications, NIA, and an invaluable information about the grants.gov system submission procedures. The package also contains the detailed selection criteria that will be used to judge the quality of the applications, as well as general information and Word versions of all required forms. Please read the package carefully. In this section, we will go over program information, the purpose of the program, who are eligible applicants, funding levels, and whether multiple applications are allowed. Let's start with the purpose of this program and this competition in particular. The ALN, or Assistance Listing Number 84.328 program, encompasses three different projects: the Community Parent Resource Centers, or ALN 84.328C, Parent Training Information Centers, or ALN 84.328M. In this competition, Parent Technical Assistance Centers, ALN 84.328R. All three are authorized in Section 670 through 673 of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. The purpose of the Special Education Parent Information Centers program is to ensure that parents of children with disabilities receive high-quality, relevant, and useful training and information to help improve outcomes for their children. The purpose of this priority is to fund 5 cooperative agreements to establish and operate one Center for Parent Information and Resources, otherwise known as the CPIR, Focus Area 1, and 4 regional parent technical assistance centers, otherwise known as the regional PTACs or Focus Area 2. The CPIR and the regional PTACs provide technical assistance to the PTIs and CPRCs funded under ALN 84.328M and C, respectively. Please note that the term parent includes natural, adopted, and foster parents, guardians, and individuals acting in the role of parents as defined in IDEA, and the term disabilities refers to a full range of disabilities described in IDEA. All private nonprofit organizations as defined in the notice are eligible to apply for the grant. You may demonstrate your nonprofit status by the methods described in the notice inviting applications. Please do not include documentation in the application narrative or in Appendix A. You may attach the documentation and other appendices to your application as you see fit. OSER staff will determine if applicants are eligible. Applications from ineligible applicants will not be read. The total available funding for the competition is $2,940,000. Focus Area 1, the CPIR, will be funded at no more than $840,000 for one budget period of 12 months. The 4 regional PTACs will be funded at no more than $525,000 for one budget period of 12 months. The awards can be renewed each following year if the projects make substantial progress, but for no more than 5 years or 60 months total. The NIA lays out what the department expects the CPIR to accomplish. I will discuss shortly the expected outcomes, but in general terms, it will provide universal technical assistance nationally to all grant recipients funded under ALN 84.328M or the PTIs and ALN 84.328C or the CPRCs. The notice defines what is universal technical assistance. Information about the current CPIR can be found at www.parentcenterhub.org. The NIA lays out what the department expects the regional PTACs to accomplish. I will discuss shortly the expected outcomes, but in general terms, they provide targeted and intensive technical assistance to all grant recipients funded under ALN 84.328M and ALN 84.328C in their respective regions. The notice defines what is targeted and intensive technical assistance. Information about the current regional PTACs can be found at www.parentcenterhub.org/RPTACS. The 4 regional PTACs are Region A, the Northeast and the Caribbean, Region B, the South, Region C, the Midwest, and Region D, the West and Pacific. The map shows the states that comprise each region, and the states are listed for each region in the notice inviting applications. An applicant may submit separate applications in more than one focus area. However, an applicant is limited to only one application in each focus area, i.e., you can only apply for only one region under Focus Area 2. If you choose to submit an application in both Focus Areas 1 and 2, you must submit separate applications and clearly state to which focus area the application pertains. For applications for Focus Area 2, please indicate clearly to which region the application pertains. In this section, I will go over some more specifics about the competition, including expected project outcomes and activities, what you should put in the application narrative and what the selection criteria are, and application requirements and general requirements. So for CPIR, Focus Area 1, what does the notice say about what the CPIR should do and how it should do it? The 2 expected outcomes are broadly they will help parent centers increase parent centers' knowledge through the development and dissemination of high quality information and products, of their knowledge of educational evidence-based practices or EBPs, their knowledge of federal and state laws and policies, their knowledge of effective and equitable practices in carrying out parent center activities, and their knowledge of effective nonprofit management practices. Another outcome is increased parent centers' use of high quality materials and approaches to train staff in effective and equitable practices in carrying out parent center activities, and increased parent centers' ability to train multilingual staff in their native languages to the extent practicable. Please note that the NIA goes into far greater detail on these outcomes. The information in the application narrative should be focused on how the applicant proposes to reach these outcomes. The notice also lays out in general terms the kinds of activities and the nature of the activities that are likely to reach these outcomes. The services that the project proposes should provide universal technical assistance through the creation and maintenance of an online annotated repository of high-quality resources, through the development and dissemination of family-centered resources for parent-centered use, through the compilation and creation of materials to train staff, and through the compilation and creation of materials on nonprofit management. In addition, the center should also assist parent centers in the collection of annual performance data. Again, the narrative should indicate how the proposed services would accomplish these tasks. So what does the notice say about what the expected project outcomes are for the regional PTACs? The three outcomes are broadly that increased parent-centered capacity to inform and train parents both virtually and in person on educational evidence-based practices, EBPs, and federal and state laws and policies, on effective and equitable practices in carrying out parent-centered activities, and on effective nonprofit management practices. They should also increase parent-centered capacity to reach more parents and youth and effectively provide equitable parent-centered services, and increase parent-centered capacity to effectively manage their nonprofit organizations and projects and to provide high-quality trainings to staff. Please note that the NIA goes into far greater detail on these outcomes. The information in the application narrative should be focused on how the applicant proposes to reach these outcomes. The notice also lays out in general terms the kinds of activities and the nature of the activities that are likely to reach these outcomes. The services that the project proposes should provide targeted and intensive technical assistance to increase parent-centered capacity to reach and provide services, train staff, manage their organizations, to work with the CPIR to identify needed materials and products, to conduct site visits at parent centers, and use the resources housed in and developed by the CPIR and build on the CPIR's universal TA. Again, the narrative should indicate how the proposed activities would accomplish these tasks. The notice lays out how the application narrative should be divided into 5 sections which correspond to the selection criteria. These sections are significance, quality of project services, quality of the project evaluation, adequacy of the budget and quality of project personnel, and quality of the management plan. I will go over each of them and point out in general terms what the narrative should address in each section. Please read the notice carefully, since the information contained in the notice is significantly more detailed. Please also note that the reviewers will be making judgments as to the quality of the application's responses to these sections. So simply restating what is in the application instructions will be insufficient. In the significance section, the narrative should provide broad information on the needs of parent centers nationally or regionally, and how the project will address those needs. The applicant should also demonstrate knowledge of current educational issues and policy initiatives, knowledge of best practices in equitable adult learning, training and outreach, and evidence-based practices, and knowledge of best practices in staff training and nonprofit management. Please note that there's much greater detail in the NIA, and this section should be read carefully. In the quality of project services, the application should provide information on how the project will assess the needs of the parent centers nationally for the CPIR or regionally for the regional PTACs, and how the project will address those needs, and also how the project will provide high-quality services that increase parent centers' knowledge in the case of the CPIR and capacity in the case of the regional PTACs to help parents and youth improve outcomes for their children, how the project will use best practices in providing training and information to families and youth, how the project will use technology to increase efficiency, collaborate with others, and use the expertise of parent centers. Please note again that there's much greater detail in the notice inviting applications, and this section should be read carefully. In the quality of the project evaluation, applicants must provide an evaluation plan that is connected to the project logic model and which measures the quality of project services and the extent to which the project will meet its targets. Lastly, the evaluation target must contain formative and summative evaluation questions connected to the proposed logic model, measurement of fidelity of implementation and project outcomes, strategies for analyzing data, timeline for conducting the evaluation, and sufficient funding and staff allocation to work with a third-party evaluator. Please note that there's much greater detail in the NIA, and this section should be read carefully. In the adequacy of budget and quality of project personnel, the application must indicate that the applicant and any partners have adequate resources to carry out project activities, that the proposed costs are reasonable, and how the project will encourage employment of people from underrepresented or underserved groups, such as people with disabilities. This section amplifies on the required assurances that the applicant will take reasonable steps to employ people with disabilities. In addition, in this section, the application must address how key personnel have the required qualifications and expertise to carry out project activities. The application also requires a separate budget narrative and an ED 524 budget form. And in this section, applicants are encouraged to make judicious references to the budget narrative and budget forms. In addition, resumes of key personnel can be included in the appendices, but the applicants are encouraged to point out the most salient qualifications here in the narrative. Please note that there's much greater detail in the NIA, and this section should be read carefully. In the quality of management plan, the narrative must show how the project will meet outcomes on time and within the budget, how contractors and key personnel will be managed. The management plan must also include information on how the applicant will ensure a diversity of perspectives are brought to bear in the operation of the proposed project, including those of parents, teachers, the business community, a variety of disciplinary and professional fields, recipients or beneficiaries of services, or others as appropriate. In addition, the management plan must lay out how the project will ensure the quality and relevance of the project services. Please note that personnel loading charts, management timelines, and other ways of representing the management plan can be added to the appendices in order to provide more detailed information. Please note that there is much greater detail in the NIA, and this section should be read carefully. As part of the process of making funding recommendations, external reviewers will judge the quality of the application using selection criteria for each section of the narrative. Each application can receive up to a total of 100 points, with the significance section receiving 10 points, the project services section up to 35 points, the evaluation and management section each receiving up to 20 points, and the budget and personnel section up to 15 points. The application package contains information on the sub-criteria within each selection criteria, and applicants are strongly encouraged to read those carefully when preparing the application narrative. In addition to the narrative, there are application requirements. First, the application must contain a logic model and conceptual framework for the project, and personnel loading charts, timelines, and other means of illustrating the management plan are encouraged. The logic model and management plan materials and the conceptual framework should be placed in Appendix A. However, all other materials such as resumes and letters of support should not be in Appendix A, but can be placed in other appendices. The applications must also include in the budget travel funds to support the project director's attendance at one annual meeting sponsored by OSEP and an additional 2-day trip to attend an OSEP-sponsored meeting. In addition, the budget must include an annual 5% set aside to support emerging needs and will be determined in collaboration with the OSEP project officer. The project must also have a high-quality website, which includes a public posting of the project progress, and you must also include in the application an assurance to assist OSEP with the transfer of pertinent resources and products and to maintain a continuity of services if needed. Please note that there's much greater detail in the NIA about these requirements. Lastly, all OSEP-funded projects must indicate that they will make positive efforts to employ and advance in employment qualified individuals with disabilities, that the project will involve individuals with disabilities or parents in planning, implementing, and evaluating the project. This competition has two competitive preference priorities. Applicants in both Focus Area 1 and Focus Area 2 can meet the competitive preference priority 1 and receive 5 points if they are a parent organization as defined in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. IDEA defines a parent organization as a private nonprofit organization other than an institution of higher education that has a board of directors, and the majority of that board of directors are parents of children with disabilities ages birth through 26. It includes individuals working in the fields of special education, related services, and early intervention, and individuals with disabilities. Notice that the board of directors must be primarily comprised of parents of children with disabilities in the age range to receive services under IDEA. In addition, in order to be a parent organization, the parent and professional members of the board of directors must be broadly representative of the population to be served, including low-income parents and parents of limited English proficient children. And the organization's mission must be to serve families of children with disabilities who are ages birth through 26 and have a full range of disabilities described in IDEA. This means that the organizations with missions to serve particular disabilities or a subset of ages would not be a parent organization as defined in IDEA. OSEP will assign these competitive preference points, and applicants can provide documentation of how they meet this competitive preference in an appendix other than Appendix A. The second competitive preference is for application Focus Area 2 from applicants that are located in regions they propose to serve. OSEP will award 5 competitive preference points for applications from applicants that meet this definition. This last section will cover information about submitting your application, including when you must submit, submission tips and SAM registration, who are ineligible applications, and application tips. Please note that applications must be submitted electronically in the grants.gov system. If there are reasons why an applicant cannot submit using grants.gov, the applicant must follow the information contained in the application package for requesting to submit hard copies. Please note that requests should be made at least 2 weeks before the submission deadline. Applicants are strongly encouraged to contact me as the competition manager to discuss a possible request. Applications cannot be submitted by email, and they must be submitted prior to the deadline of 11:59 p.m. on March 28, 2023. We strongly encourage applicants to submit all narratives and attachments in PDF read-only, non-modifiable format. Any materials provided in other formats may not be compiled directly in the application and can lead to missing information. In order to make sure that the application is submitted on time and correctly, please register as early as possible in grants.gov and start the application process. Do not wait until you have the application ready to register. Grants.gov will create a workspace for applicants to submit the pieces of the application over time. If you already registered in the System for Award Management, or SAM, make sure your registration is current. Submit early, a day or more in advance if possible. Should there be any problems with the Grants.gov system, submitting early will ensure that the deadline is met. Verify that the submission is okay. Grants.gov will send applicants notification that the submission was on time and validated. So applicants should make sure that they receive the confirmation and not assume the submission was okay. Please note that if for any reason an application is submitted more than once and validated more than once, the last application submitted will be considered, and previous applications will be considered duplicates and therefore ineligible. Please note that all grantees must have a unique entity identifier and taxpayer identification number in the System for Award Management, or SAM. Applicants must also be registered in the System for Award Management, the government's primary registrant database. Be sure to provide your unique entity identifier number and tax identification number on your application. Maintain an active SAM registration with current information while your application is under review by the department. And if you are awarded a grant during the project period, keep your SAM registration current. In addition to duplicate applications, there are 3 reasons why an application may not be eligible. First, all applications received after the published deadline will not be eligible for funding. Applications that do not address the priority will also not be eligible for funding. For example, an application proposing to establish a recreational program for young children with autism will not be eligible, since that is not the purpose of this priority. Lastly, applications received from organizations other than nonprofit organizations as defined in this priority are not eligible. Please note that applicants that submit ineligible applications will be notified that their application will not be reviewed. The process for making funding decisions is long and complex, and months may go by before an applicant is informed of the status of their application. Applicants who submit ineligible applications are often informed before funding decisions are reached. Here are some additional tips for submitting an application. Pay attention to the maximum funding levels for each grant as contained in the notice. Awards will not be made for amounts higher than the published amounts. Following the recommended organization, page limits, spacing, and font sizes facilitate the application review process, and applicants should strongly consider following the recommendations. PDF files make it easier for the system to put together different parts of the application into one application that reviewers can more easily read and follow. While electronic systems such as grants.gov can be frustrating, following the grants.gov submission procedures and tips for applicants found in Section B of the application package can be extremely helpful. As I mentioned at the beginning, this webinar covers highlights of what's contained in the application package and notice inviting applications. You may also contact me by email at carmen.sanchez@ed.gov or by phone at 202-245-6595 with any of your questions. Thank you for your time and attention.